To introduce, we have two great guest speakers today. We have Judith Ryan here, and she is the town of Danvers public health nurse, and she has a bachelor's in science in nursing. And Christa Chirichiello, she is a DHS graduate from 2006. She has a BS in psychology. She's an LPN. She's getting her RN next year, and a licensed drug and alcohol counselor. So let's go ahead and get started. The reason we're here is to talk about some of these things that can be like really difficult to process, to deal with, and that's substance abuse, alcohol abuse, addiction, and we want to help you try and find out some strategies and coping mechanisms that can help you like make individual independent choices and to lead like a healthier lifestyle. So Christa, I'm going to hand it over to you now.
All right, that's good. You guys hear me? Hi, thank you so much for having me. My name's Christa. Like you said, I'm a DHS graduate of 2006, and I have all of those fancy credentials, but I'm also an alcoholic with 4 years, 8 months, and 2 weeks in recovery. So I'm here. Along my journey, I saw a lot of holes in the system, so I'm really happy to be here to help educate a little bit. My first drink was when I was 14. You guys probably will all face this at some point. You know, when is this going to occur? I was 14 years old, and I was with a bunch of my girlfriends and just kind of drinking as much as we had because we didn't know how much it was. We ended up getting really, really sick. We cried a lot. We probably called some boys, and even though we all felt terrible the next day, I really, really liked it. And that was kind of how my brain continued to go. And a decade later, probably when I was like 24, 25, I realized I had a physical addiction at this point. So my body became reliant on a certain amount of consumption. I found out that if I drank in the morning, I didn't feel bad anymore. So doing the dishes or doing the dishes with tequila, I don't know, it kind of seemed like a no-brainer. Until it caught up and it made me so very sick, and I hurt so many people along the way, but most importantly, it was kind of myself I was lying to that whole time. So I was sober for about a year, wasn't counting though, because I still planned on going back to it for some strange reason. I had gone through somewhere between 7 to 10 withdrawal seizures trying to stop on my own. It's very dangerous. You need inpatient treatment for that. And then it came back just as hard. I thought I could do it casually, thought I could just, have this one drink, and it just escalated, it snowballed. So I finally went inpatient, and that kind of started my journey from here about 8 months and 2 weeks ago.
Hi everyone, thank you very much. I'm Judith Ryan, the public health nurse here in Danvers. And I have, like so many others, have experienced in my personal family life, substance use. So none of us are immune to this. One of the things that everybody needs to understand is that addiction is an actual chronic disease. It's a relapsing brain disorder. A lot of people do not understand that addiction is a disease, and that's one of the biggest things that we need people to understand. It's not, well, that's what she chooses, this is what he wants to do. It's a disease that is out of their control. So it's characterized by an inability to stop, regardless of the negative issues that are taking place, just like Christa said, she knew. So what people need to understand is that it is a disease, and with every other disease that's out there, whether it's cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, cardiac disease, whatever, the only way that an individual is going to get better is by getting help through therapy, through medications, whatever that needs to be. It's a disease. So that's a big thing that I need everybody to understand.
All right, so let's talk about when recreational use becomes an addiction. Christa, can you just give me a little background on when you were able to finally get the help that you need, and then talk to us about who can be impacted by substance addiction?
Sure. So if you want to get technical, there's DSM-5 criteria that's going to be able to indicate the level of severity of your drug addiction or alcoholism. And I had crossed that line far long before I finally got treatment. But it's mainly characterized by this obsession. Like you feel like the next thing that you're going to do is going to involve whatever substance that is. And you can see it in many forms, but for me it was alcohol. And I needed that out of my head to be able to go forward successfully. And when I went in patient treatment, I saw everybody. I mean, there's no discrimination. And that's with alcohol and that's with fentanyl. There are people of all backgrounds, all socioeconomic, all demographics, all ages. And I've seen that just kind of compounded and confirmed through my work in the field in the last 4 years.
Thank you. Judith, can you talk to me a little bit about some of the signs and symptoms of someone who is struggling with an alcohol or drug addiction?
Sure. It's one of the big things that you got to remember is that I could just go on and on with that one, but one of the big things I want you to take home with is it's an individual who deviates from their norm. So what you're used to seeing. You're used to going out and seeing, having fun and getting together with, and all of a sudden your friend just, nope, can't do it, nope. So they start pulling away, you're not seeing them as often. You might, when you are together, you're noticing that, hey, they're drinking a lot more than they used to, or, they seem really off more than usual. Maybe you've noticed that they've started stealing, maybe because they need the money to buy whatever it is that they need. Their mood changes, their behavior changes. Sometimes it can be very subtle and happen over time, but sometimes it can be like all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what's up with this? And then you're noticing that tends to be their norm at this point. So it's a deviation from their normal behavior.
So Christa, one of the things that you and I have talked about is as to be a good support to people who need it, how one of the things you have to do is first establish some healthy boundaries. So can you talk to me about that and maybe some other ways that you can be a good support system for maybe friends or family members that are dealing with substance addiction?
There's two components really of being a good support that are going to be the best way to help somebody with an addiction, because you're going to find it's going to be very emotionally draining if you don't set up those good boundaries. And it's kind of a weird thing to say because everyone's in high school and you might not even know what your boundaries are yet. But making sure that you're kind of keeping your own mental sanity together and that you're not getting your cup kind of emptied by this person. And how to be a good support is also just being present for them. So having a hand ready, having resources ready, and having knowledge, but most importantly, not discriminating or judging, because this as a whole is a subject that is very difficult and people are mistreated all the time because they think it's based on a moral failing. And that's really not the case. Like Judith said, it's a disease and we want to make sure that we recognize it as that.
Can I just jump onto that one as well? One of the things that I remember doing, and it's not helpful, is well, just stop. Just knock it off. Just stop. They don't want to hear that, and that's not all it takes, is to just stop. Am I right?
And you'll see people instantly get defensive about it because it's very hard to understand and comprehend what's going on in somebody's brain when they're addicted to something and what that feels like. So when an outside person says, hey, just stop, which by the way is super dangerous if you're an alcoholic, somebody says that, you're instantly going to be on the defensive because it's like, what do you even know about this? And so it's very important that you find those people that you trust because these resources are available. There's so many of us. You'll be behind somebody in Market Basket and you wouldn't even know that they're in recovery. I mean, they're everywhere. So seeking those out when you need it.
Is there a difference between alcohol and drug addiction?
The short answer is no. The long answer, I'll try to make short. So there really isn't. An addiction is an addiction, and it doesn't really matter what an individual is addicted to. For many years, the alcohol was not really listed under addictions. And it's not until just recently, in the last couple of years, that it's actually now being listed under addictions. The biggest difference is alcohol is legal. So alcohol is legal, obviously you have to be of a particular age. So that made it much more readily available for individuals. Every kid in the house knows where the liquor cabinet is. But when it comes to drugs, it's illegal for people to be selling, unless you have a prescription and physicians and that type of thing, it's illegal. So that's the biggest difference, is alcohol is readily available, whereas the drugs are not. Once that substance use occurs, as far as what happens, it pretty much is very similar, whether it's alcohol or drugs. You start drinking, you start using, and then you fall down that path.
How do I deal with peer pressure to do things I don't want to do?
I think peer pressure is really funny because I just want to let you guys know, like in 10 years, most of the people you're friends with, it doesn't really make a big deal at the end of the day. So when you're in these peer pressure situations, the best thing that you can do is just like have conviction with yourself and like know the things that you want to do and know the things that you don't want to do. And finding that space in you somehow to say that out loud. Peer pressure is, in retrospect, you'll see is kind of like a huge waste of your time because you're going to end up being who you are at the end of the day anyway. But yeah, I think that if you're struggling with that, just find other people, just find other people that share the same values as you. That's going to be true now and it's going to be true for the rest of your life. And start now.
Can you die from an overdose of alcohol? Christa.
Yes, so you can die from an overdose of alcohol. You can, Amy Winehouse. So you get acute alcohol intoxication. It's usually a blood alcohol level over 0.4 or 40% of your blood is alcohol. And then your brain and your lungs don't know how to function because they're so depressed. But then there's the long-term version too, which is very traumatic.
That's my best friend, Sailor. She's the first friend I met when I moved to New York City in 2008 to work for CNN. I did. She was fun, she was friendly, she was outgoing, and she really helped me become comfortable in a city that I did not know. That's her son, Tate. He's a twin. Sailor is an alcoholic, and this is part of the reason why this is so important to me. For years, we tried to get her help. We sent her to rehabs, and she was in England, and we flew her to the United States. She always said, you can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped. So we prayed and prayed for the day to come that she wanted to be helped. May 12th, 2022, she drank herself, went to bed, got up, fell, and never woke up again. Her 12-year-old boys have no mom. I feel a tremendous responsibility to help them, to help her husband. And so this to me, I want to say, is addiction does not just impact those who are addicted. It is a disease that impacts so many people. My heart is broken for her kids. I'm getting so emotional because it's something I live with every day. So that is a little personal story of why it's important to stand up for what you believe in. I know I can live with the fact that I tried my hardest to get her help. And it just didn't work. And sometimes that is what happens. But sometimes you have an amazing human like Christa who has battled addiction and has found help in the strength to get better. And so, Christa, can you go ahead and talk about this thing here?
Yeah, and just to follow up on Julie's story, I think that when you get to my age, not like I'm super old, but like when you get to a certain age, you start building up prayer cards of people that you lose from this, and you start realizing how monumental it really is and how important it is that we continue to educate. That's why I'm here. I thought about doing this years ago when I got sober, and then I got invited to do it, so I'm like, this is kind of, full circle, so thank you so much for having me. This is a passion project. This is my favorite question. Okay, I feel we need to recognize the fact that young students are using substances and getting themselves killed. My question is, how do you or anyone else plan to prevent substance use? So, no one else was doing it, so I was like, why not? Why not I go try and do this? But no, young kids all the time, there has to be this understanding that your old dare where they categorize the different drugs and you get to see this is what it does, this is what it does. There's nothing out there anymore. If you take a drug, you're doing fentanyl. I've done drug tests, I've had little old ladies that say they just smoke weed and it's popping for fentanyl. It'll kill you the first time, and if it doesn't, you'll get addicted to it. That's all that there is. It's not like back in the day when you could, all these varieties, that's it. So please understand that. And my whole point, getting people involved. There's no money in prevention. That's why people aren't doing it. I don't have a thing to sell. I just have the stuff that I know. So it's not like the most lucrative business of all time, but I think if you guys are all educated and passionate, we can really help make a change.
Judith, can you give me a quick bit of info on Narcan?
Sure. Narcan, you will also hear called naloxone. Narcan will only work on opioids, and those are drugs such as fentanyl, heroin, codeine, anything like that. It's not going to work on your Ativans. It's not going to work on anything else unless there is an opioid in it. Fentanyl is a big one. It's huge. Narcan comes in a box like this. You give real quickly. You give one spray up the nose. You've called 911. If it didn't work, you give another one. I could go on and on, but we're running out of time, so I'm not going to. I, as the public health nurse here in Danvers, I have naloxone. If you ever want it, I have fentanyl test strips. If you ever want it, you get in touch with me.
Judith, would you talk about some of the risks of using substances under the age of 18 when your brain is still developing?
Yep. Again, this could be a whole class on this one, but in a nutshell, what happens is when we take any kind of drugs or alcohol, it interferes with the say that again?
Prefrontal
cortex.
Yeah, judgment.
Yeah. I'm trying to think fast and keep it basic. So what happens is it blocks the development. So it interferes with the development of your brain cells. So, and one of the things that is really developing as teenagers is pleasure, is decision making, and when those get interrupted and interferes with, now what happens down the road is you never have that ability to fix that. So now your pleasure, the only thing that you get pleasure from is taking drugs or drinking alcohol.
If you want to do a very quick wrap up if we can, what can I do for someone who abuses substances and knows that it's wrong and needs help? What do you suggest?
If there's somebody that that's struggling, it's just such a monumental task to have on your shoulders, like Julie said. You feel like there's some level of responsibility, but the best thing that we can do for each other in the community is to educate and understand and refuse to demoralize or stigmatize these people. This is just kind of what happens. This is life. Drugs and alcohol are going to be there. And the only thing that's going to help is if we understand going into it how to treat other people. It's not so much about the drug itself, the substance itself. Of course, you want to steer clear. But if you have strength in your own identity and you have strength in the community around you, you're going to have a better chance of this not becoming as much of a problem. And if you have people in your community that are passionate about it, maybe we could get more people to take it seriously on more like a political, social level.
And yes, it is okay to talk to a parent about it. Talk to people, get adults involved in this. Get as many people as possible involved to hopefully help this individual.
Thank you. I just want to thank our guests for coming, Judith and Christa. Really appreciate you sharing your stories and your information. If anybody has any follow-up questions, go to those questionnaires posted on your Google Classroom, put them in there, I will make sure we get that information out to you, okay? Thank you.